Hi there, it's Kim Marie, and I want to talk. It's funny because yesterday I got a lot of feedback about just talking about what holding on to resentment can do. And it's funny because I didn't want to talk about that subject yesterday. I got it intuitively that I needed to share that experience, and I didn't want to. I wanted to resist it because it was not a positive feeling within me, and that's what people need to hear. We need to get to the real problems, because the bottom line is concepts are good and only as good as how we can apply them, right? And if we don't know how to apply them and put them into action, there's no use in having them, right? So how do we pinch off our life force? I want you to imagine that we have a certain amount of energy that we are given every day. And just let's make believe that we are completely healthy and we are at 100%. Okay, so just imagine, see this cup of sand as our energy for today. And every time we do something to invest, it's to get in a loving place. So I want you to imagine your investments are all the positive things that we do in our lives. Having compassion, giving love and kindness, giving grace, being forgiving, being inspired. All of these things having gratitude, getting an acceptance, feeling empowered, feeling confident. All of these things are things that are on the light side that are going to make us magnetic, right? So, and then there are things that drain us. Now, we don't have control of everything in our life, and I'm not saying don't ever feel negative feelings. Don't ever feel, of course we're going to be angry sometimes, and we're going to be frustrated sometimes, and we're going to be sad and depressed and feel rejected or abandoned or any of those, or taken advantage of, or victimized in some way. Of course we're going to have those things, because that's life. Life is polarization. But the key is to claim our power back, is to not keep giving our power away. Okay, so if we are at 100% and something happens and then we feel disempowered. I'm going to give the example of my last year. I was renting a place. I just had a whole bunch of loss in my life. I lost both my parents, a good friend of mine, and 2 dogs in 1 year. I know that's insane, and I was taking care of my parents, and it was just really, really knocked me down. It just felt like as soon as I would get up a little bit, I would get knocked down more. So I moved to Asheville and I rented a place, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to stay. So it took me about 3 months to finally decide I was going to stay. And then I finally get myself settled and moved in fully, only a couple of months. And now it was January and the heat went out. And it was like 19 degrees outside. So my landlord said it's not going to be fixed for another 8 days. So it's 30 degrees in my house. I have to go rent a hotel. And I had a little dog at the time, and it was just a lot, right? So I did that. And then when I met with the landlord, I also noticed that months earlier, there was an issue with the water underneath the kitchen was leaking. And so they fixed the leak, but they never fixed the floor. And in those couple of months, the floor started to buckle. Well, sure enough, now there was mold growing. Now, I had told him about the floor that was buckled, and he didn't do anything about it. And I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to make life easy, right? I'm not used to a landlord. I've always owned my own home. Like, I would have fixed it. I just really trying to take care of my life. Anyway, long story short, when I went to meet with him, I'm assuming that he's going to pay for the time that I wasn't in the home, that I wasn't supplied heat, and there would be no issue with him reimbursing me for the time that I had to spend in a hotel. It's not like I was in the lap of luxury. As a matter of fact, I had to go out and now buy meals because I didn't have a place to cook. I mean, it was very inconveniencing. But he somehow found a way to want to turn it around onto me and tell me that he wasn't going to pay the hotel bill, as if I was like on a vacation. And he said, and then when I mentioned the floor, he said, well, I just assumed you fixed that. And I was shocked, you know. I mean, a lot of times that happens to me because I am a reasonable person. I am a kind person, and people can tend to see how far they can push you, right? So that's always my workout, and it gets me angry and frustrated. And then so that anger and frustration that I talked about yesterday is piled on to a pattern, a life pattern of feeling like, oh, nice people finish last, or people take advantage of my kindness, and I'm being, you know, now I'm being taken advantage of. So I got really frustrated and angry, and then I said, well, you know, I'm not paying you for this month's rent. So I left. And then he started to do bullying things, which is another definite pattern. Is he came over and ripped all the insulation down. That he actually replaced the insulation under the floor without fixing the floor, and so that's what caused the mold. So he pulled it all down because now he had to. I guess he wanted to cover himself. I think he thought he was covering himself by covering it up, but I had pictures and he knew it. And so he did that, but as he pulled down all the insulation, I said, make sure that my stuff is in that basement. Make sure that you cover my stuff before you go down and contaminate it with the mold. And he didn't do that. He just pulled everything down. So now I'm getting more upset, and now I'm not going to give him money until he, stops, number one. And he's trying to force me to fix the floor now, again, to cover himself, but he's not willing to do it properly. He wasn't willing to close off, have it done professionally, which would mean everything in my home that I've just taken out of storage and I've just unpacked is now would be contaminated. So we were in a battle. And I'm using this example because I've gotten a lot of examples yesterday and feedback from people that, were enough to really go, wait a minute, I feel victimized, I'm feeling bullied, I have to fight back. And that is what I did, right? So I documented everything. So long story short, he continued his bullying by now saying, okay, well, you didn't pay me for this month's rent, so now I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to have you evicted. And I that's the last thing I want, right? I work really hard to have good credibility, to have good credit, and now I'm going to be evicted at 55 years old. Like, what? I've never, this is insane. So I found out that I can do a counterclaim, which is what I did. I documented everything. I took pictures of everything. I had receipts for everything, and I did a counterclaim. But I'm in battle mode. And when we are in battle mode, what we're doing is cutting off our own life force. Now, I want to explain this. I'm not saying don't claim your power back. But when we are in battle mode, what we're doing is just putting holes in our bucket, okay? So we're walking around and we're draining our own energy, which drains our being effective, right? It stops the ability to be fully effective. So what happened was I had gotten myself in such a frustrated, angry place, which is not who I am. And I know that's not who you are, right? That's not who we are. It's where we go, okay? And I know this, I teach this, but we're human. So it's not that you won't go there, it's how quickly can we get out of there. The good news is the world is always set up to show us in a mirror where we're being. So my friend said, you know what, it's St. Patrick's Day, you need to go out, just go out and have fun. And I thought, well, where am I gonna go? But I did, I ended up going out and meeting a friend, and then we met another friend, and I ended up talking to someone I had met once before, and I had a couple of drinks, and then we start having this conversation. And he was me in male form. It was hilarious. It was like, life sets you up with a mirror. And he was just really being devil's advocate. Well, what would happen if you do get what would happen if you do win the court case? What would happen if you do get your money back? What would happen? Now what? Like, what are you going to get from that, right? And is that going to make you now, is it going to give you your 3 months back? Is it going to, because you've literally spent 3 months frustrated and in this space. And when we're frustrated in this space, we attract from that space, and we literally cut off our own life force, which means that we can't draw positive toward us. So I was like, and I know he didn't know all that when he was asking me those questions. He was just prodding me. But because I do this work, I was able to get myself back and go, yeah, really, what would I do? Like, was it worth trading my health and my happiness and my joy and my freedom for this? Because it didn't go help the poor. And again, I don't even think that's a trade. Usually when you're helping the poor, you're literally filling your cup. Then you can give from overflow. This was just a drain. This was doing nothing but draining my energy. So here's what I did. I gave the landlord several opportunities before the day of court. I sent him emails saying, wanting to settle this, right? Not because I didn't think I could have a case, but just because that's who I am. I want to, I don't know, just always try to work it out, right? So here, I'll do this if you do that kind of thing. And I sent him emails, and he was very confident that he was in the right 100%, and there was no room for compromise. As a matter of fact, the night before court, now at this point, I've started to flip my cup back. I've started to fill myself back up. How did I do that? Number one, I just got back into who I am, that I can claim my power no matter what's going on. I don't have to cut off my own life force like you would cut a hose, like putting if you need all your energy, especially when you're being drained, the energy, it has to be clear, right? If we start to pinch a hose, what happens? Is any energy going to get through? No. So I have to get my love back. So I start focusing on gratitude. I start focusing on number one, I could afford to go to a hotel. I do have the knowledge as a landlord to know what's legal and what's not. I've already been a landlord. I know that I'm really not trying to spite anybody. I just want what's right. I don't feel like I should be treated this way. And I don't feel like other tenants that don't know any better should be treated this way. So I did have a little bit of that. That's not okay. It's not okay to bully people. At the same time, I wasn't going to let it drain me anymore. So I started to send the whole lesson love. And you know why? Because I was gaining muscles. Because I feel like I was able to see, okay, you know what, this is a workout. Yeah, this really tested me into whether am I going to be this victim who gets bullied and who walks away, or am I going to just stand up? And whatever happens, happens. But if I'm standing up and I'm doing my best, then it can't take its power from me, no matter what happens. So that's what I did. I started sending the landlord love. I started sending the lesson love. I started to send prayer and love around the courtroom. And typically, if you go to family court, and I've been there several times with my divorce, with my child support, we're going through divorce stuff. I've also been in with real estate deals, and I've been in several times, okay? Typically when you go to small claims court, you're thrown into a courtroom with a bunch of people, and when you think you're going to get your day in court, a lot of times you don't, because you get in there and as soon as you start to talk, they start cutting you off, and they just want to make a deal as quickly as possible and get you out of there. So that's been my experience in the past. So I didn't expect a whole lot of positive. At the same time, I was sending a lot of positive. I was just sending love to the courtrooms, love to the people in the court, love to the landlord for requiring me to stand up for myself, for requiring me to do it with grace and poise rather than losing myself. It pushed me hard enough to have to really bump against my integrity, bump against my core values. I don't ever want to throw away my integrity or my core values for anyone, because that is cutting off more life force than you could ever imagine. When you start abandoning yourself, we can't get mad at somebody for taking our power, because we're literally giving it away. Here's what happened. At the end of the day, I woke up and I was just knowing. I was just knowing that no matter what, I've already claimed my power back. There's nothing I can do if I get evicted or not, right? There's nothing, me being upset is not going to change that. Me being angry is not going to change that. Me feeling disempowered is not going to change that. So show up, be the best you can, and be empowered. And that's what I did. And when I got out of my car, I'm telling you, people were smiling, hello, good morning, at the courthouse. I've never seen anything like that. I walk in and my friend met me there as a support, and I handed the landlord, I had to serve him before the court, and I served him, and he literally, and I had a stack of about 40 sheets of paper, and he just threw it to the side and read his newspaper as if he's in the right, it's okay to do this. And I thought, wow, he's not even willing to see what he's up against. And I stayed positive and I stayed in a happy space. The judge comes out, and I didn't even know it was the judge, and I had a big smile and he had a big smile and everything. It was just like, then I find out later he's the judge, and it was just positive energy. And the reason why I'm saying that it was happening is because I flipped my magnet up. I got myself in a manifesting mindset versus a lack mindset, which deflects anything good from coming. And it really is that real. It can be measured. So we went into court, and don't you know, to my surprise, the only people in the courtroom was the judge, the court reporter, the guard in the back, me, my friend, and the landlord. I've never seen anything like that, ever. What was even funnier or more interesting was that I actually got to cross-examine my landlord, and he did me as well. So I got to ask him questions to have him admit to every single thing he said and did that was going against my rights as a tenant. So he literally dug his own hole, and he didn't even know, because he didn't even look at what I was countering. As it turned out, the judge granted that I won the case, so I didn't get evicted. I got 3 months of rent for free, and there was obviously no record or anything like that. So that moment was so empowering for me, and it would have been 100% different if I showed up differently. Or if I just know that, right? It wouldn't have, just the fact that I can articulate this tells you that it's used, I use this as a tool. This wasn't chance. It's when we become conscious of what we do and why, and we use it as a tool for our life to navigate life better, because life is going to throw us things. Now, something was mentioned yesterday about a friend who had a debilitating disease that happened from an accident. So there's a lot of attorney stuff, and that can go on for years or even decades. And it's like, what are we willing to trade for that? There are so many. Now, I happen to have won that case, but there was another time, and I don't want to tell a big story. There was another time where I had done a renovation for someone, and he just kept pushing me off on payment, and I just kept keeping with the schedule and doing the work, because that's who I am. I try to stay in integrity with what I have agreed to and my time frame. And so I did that, only to find out that when I showed up frustrated, not been paid, and showed up to do work that one day, he had changed the locks, and I was not able to recover my money, which was thousands of dollars. And the reason why I wasn't was for a legal loophole, right? So I did the work, I had a contract, but there was a legal loophole on a certain amount of money under contract. And it was like, I could have fought it, but I didn't have someone that could fight it for me. And so I had to let that go. But the truth is, you have to let it go out of your body. How many times do we tell that story? And when we tell the story, we're dumping sand. We're every single time. We are giving our energy away when we tell the story. So we have to say, okay, what did I learn from this? Well, I learned, number one, have a contract. Number two, know the laws. Number three, even if it's against your integrity, to go back on your word. Are you going back on your word if they haven't gotten payment? So it's being real clear on that, right? It's not overly trusting. So I've learned to get more clear on how I run business, so I don't put myself in those positions again. Now, the other piece of it is, there are many people who do this work, or who are conscious of themselves. They are conscious of whether they complain, whether they tell story, and hold on to a story. And you do have to feel your story for a moment. You do have to feel that pain in your body. You do have to, because in order to get past it, we have to be in it for a minute to understand it. So if you go to a friend and they start telling you, oh, and they want to tell you your in story, or they want to stop you, or they want to point it back at you, or if you're doing that, like if you hear someone telling a story or complaining, and you start judging them, or you start wanting to fix them, and they haven't asked you, that they're just telling you, like they're just needing you, they're needing your guidance. When you start judging, even though you may feel like you're not in that space of complaining, I'm not saying you have to complain with someone, but if they're your good friend and they're complaining about this because they don't know how to overcome it, then judging them is doing that too. Okay? So if you can't be in it with them, you're better off excusing them. Judging them is going to drain your energy, and it's going to be in alignment. It's not like you're in a better space. So the best space to be to help someone and to keep your energy when someone is in that space is to send them love, to see them as whole and perfect, to see them as empowered, to hold that for them until they can find that for themselves. That's what we all want. Not everybody is toxic and crazy and something wrong with them if they show anger or frustration or feel disempowered or feel victimized. It doesn't mean that's who they are. It's where they are, right? Just like we get there sometimes. Everyone wants to judge the next person, but we get there too. So that's why I admit all these things. That's why I tell you all these stories, because yes, life is hard a lot of the time, but it also teaches us something. It also strengthens us, and it can empower us if we let it, if we allow our cup to get full, if we allow love, if we allow being inquisitive. What can I learn from this? Yeah, it was terrible. I had one woman tell me that she had lost her child due to something that she believed happened in the hospital. And the child was young, like 4. And I don't know anything worse than that, right? To me, I don't know anything worse than that. And this woman was beautiful and exuberant and out the other side with now 2 children who she had, had since, who were probably 5 and 7 at the time. So it had been maybe a decade. And there are people who get swallowed from experiences like that, and they never come out the other side. Never mind filled joy, peace, freedom, and empowerment. So what did she do? She said, it just wasn't fair, and I just kept fighting, and I kept fighting, and I kept gathering information, and I kept doing this, and I kept doing that, which is similar to what I was doing with the landlord, or similar to what I was doing with that contracting job. Just keep fighting, keep fighting. You're being wronged. You want to keep fighting. You want justice, right? Well, sometimes there is no justice in that situation. And she said to herself, I had to one day just let it go. Just let it go. What she did was she freed herself. She uncrimped her life force. She did. She uncrimped her life force that she was crimping by letting go. By letting go. So sometimes, that one construction job, I lost $16,000. But you know what? By letting it go and by getting back into love and compassion and doing what I'm really passionate about, which has always been this work, I've attracted so much more abundance in my life than holding on to this person or in this situation and letting my life get swallowed by it. So that's my message for today. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. If you're having trouble figuring out what you're learning from a situation, how you can get out the other side, you need some coaching, please, that's what I do. This is what I'm passionate about, and I am best at seeing other people's blind spots. So let me help you. That's what I do best. That's what I do really well, really effectively, really quickly, and I'd love to help whoever really needs me and who's ready to go there. Have an amazing day. Mwah.